You're listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast, celebrating hunting dog heritage, competition, and community. United Kennel Club has been the hunting dog sports home for coonhounds, beagles, retrievers, pointers, cur, feist, and more for over 125 years. All right, next section is going to be section 14, talks all about timeouts and what the reasons that we can use to call timeout or that we may consider calling timeout. And it says judge or majority of the cast, if hunting judge is used, may call timeout in accordance with the following. And let's just talk about that for a second. If we have a non-hunting judge, they will make the decision alone on whether we're going to call timeout or not, or if we have something that justifies us calling timeout during the hunt. If we have a hunting judge, in that case, it requires a majority of the cast to be in favor of calling a timeout.
Yeah, and it goes straight to a vote. The judge doesn't make a decision and question it and vote then. You vote right off the bat.
That's right, and the judge doesn't have any more. The judge's vote here does not count or have any more weight than any other handler.
Yep. So the first reason to call timeout, 14A, it says when dogs are getting on highway, onto posted land, or into a place where there is danger to dogs or hunters.
Very, very straightforward. If we have a situation where dogs are getting on a highway, and he uses the word highway, and that is probably to insinuate it's a busy road. Doesn't mean a dirt road with 3 vehicles coming down every 3 times a day or what have you. It's not that. Just anything that's considered dangerous. If they get getting on a highway or posted land is another big one. Dogs can't be, and sometimes we will have that. We don't want them over there and can't help. We've got a dog going there or whatever. That might be a reason where we can consider to call timeout. But then we need to have the judge, non-hunting judge, to make that call. Or if we have a majority of the cast, we need to have a majority to do so. And sometimes we may have one guy thinks we need to call timeout, but the majority of them don't. We don't have a majority. Then I guess, I can also, if I think my dog's in danger or something like that, then I can still go grab my dog, just withdraw from the hunt.
Right. You always got that option.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rule 14B, another reason to call timeout here. If new ground must be found to finish cast and more than 15 minutes is required or have to move to new area by vehicle, call timeout immediately.
Yeah, so if we kind of basically hunted out this spot and there's just nothing happening here, we need to move on. If we have more than, if it's going to take us more than 15 minutes, in other words, if we just need to walk across this field to this other little section of timber and it's going to take us 3 minutes, we're not going to call timeout. We can't call timeout. It's only if it takes at least 15 minutes walk, a good distance across an open field somewhere to get the dogs over there. If it takes at least 15 minutes, or if we need to call timeout, we're going to gather up the dogs and move by vehicle. Even if it only takes 5 minutes to move by vehicle, that's fine. But if we got to get in the vehicle and we're going to go down the road somewhere, then we can call timeout.
Yep. Another reason would be Rule 14C, and it says in case of accident or sickness.
Yep, and that means a handler or anybody involved, handlers or dogs. If we have a sick situation or an accident or something, why that gives us a reason to consider calling timeout.
14D, another reason, if cast becomes lost.
Yep, we might be somewhere where we just don't know where we are for whatever that reason. That's pretty wide open. It seems okay. What's a lost cast? Well, you might not know until you actually get lost, or you have handlers maybe, sometimes going to handle their dog, and in doing so, they're not familiar with where they are, and they end up getting lost or something like that. Or if you realize you have the cast becomes lost, whether it's one or what have you, I call timeout.
Yep. 14E, call timeout. Dogs declared treed before timeout is called will be scored.
Yep, and I'm glad that's in there, because any dog that is declared treed before timeout is called, that dog is eligible to be scored and should be scored and needs to be scored.
Absolutely.
And it's not, if it were otherwise, why probably wouldn't be right if we had, if your dog got treed and every time it did, we just called timeout, hey, we got dogs, so you can't score here. That wouldn't be right either. So any dog declared treed before timeout is scored is eligible for scoring, or before timeout is called is eligible for scoring.
And then 14F, the last reason here before we get to the disclaimer here at the end, it says when a dog is injured.
Yeah, that kind of goes with a case of accident or sickness or something like that. It happens sometimes. You have a dog injured. Why, it's called timeout and give attention to this dog that needs it.
And then at the end of the rule here, there's a note in bold that I guess we should go over real quick. It says, and we may have to take this a couple sentences at a time here. It's a little lengthy note. It says, if timeout is called then time is out, and if dog should tree, it will not count.
Yep, that's pretty self-explanatory. Should be, let's say we've just agreed to calling timeout, and 5 seconds later, my dog is now treeing. Is like, doggone it, I just missed it. If I'd have been if it had done that 10 seconds earlier, I could have been eligible to be scored there. It doesn't. When time's out, you don't put time back in again. That's it. Timeout was called. You gather all the dogs up and recast them before you're going to call time back in.
Next sentence one's pretty important to know. When timeout is called and dogs are still loose, you have 30 minutes to recover the dog or dogs, or the dogs will be scratched and the remainder of the cast may proceed to hunt.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why this one is not in section 13 for like delaying the cast. But anytime you call timeout, the judge should always start his 30-minute clock, and everybody has 30 minutes to get their dogs caught up and be back with the cast and ready to proceed with the hunt. If they don't get it done within 30 minutes, again, it doesn't matter how many points, no other situation or what your situation was. Doesn't matter if it was so far, there was no way you could have got the dog back in time. There's no exceptions to it. 30 minutes is all you get for whatever reason. Need to get the hunt moving on, and anybody that's not able to do that is going to be scratched. And the rest of the cast has to wait on somebody. Give them at least 30 minutes. And this is also a reason why you might consider your deadline, your return deadline, for situations like that. You got to give yourself some cushion like this, because essentially if you're having trouble catching your dog for whatever reason, it's taking more than we have to give you. The rest of the cast, we have to give you at least 30 minutes before we can continue on with our hunt.
Right.
And and there's also a return deadline that we have to be back at the club. So we can't just give you, if that's a concern, we won't make it if we give you a full 30 minutes. That should have been thought about before we set the deadline. So this is something for officials to think about as well. But outside of that, we have to give the handler at least 30 minutes. Once that 30 minutes is up, then that dog is scratched and the cast can continue on.
Yeah. It'd be important for the judge to note where to meet.
Exactly.
And
communication.
by what time to meet.
Yep.
In capitalized letters here, it says no time is to be called out to search a tree or when dogs are tied or to be led away from a tree. Yeah.
That's during a hunt. We can't call time out, just to save time because we want to walk away a little bit or anything like that. It's after we've scored a tree or what have you, we're not going to stop the hunt time or anything like that. We're going to keep it rolling. The only time we are is what we talked about a little bit ago, if we're going to move, and it takes more than 15 minutes to move.
And I think it also tells us there, Rule 14E told us that you could declare your dog treed before timeout is called, and it will be scored. Mm-hmm. Time could be out. You go handle your dog. You still have to call time in to search the tree, and then call time back out when you're done searching.
That's exactly right. Yep. That's also going to, if we have any dogs like that, that's going to use up hunt time.
Yep.
Has to.
And then let's see. It goes on here to say if dogs declared treed, 5 minutes of hunting time may be demanded to search tree or place of refuge, which is not a timeout. No plus points will be awarded if squirrel is seen after 5 minutes searching time has elapsed.
Yep, there you go, and that's pretty self-explanatory. I feel like you can use 5 minutes to search a tree or a place of refuge, and that's. Doesn't matter if a dog, that includes a dog that was declared treed before timeout is called, and you call time back in again, you got to use that whole time. And then the other thing is once your 5 minutes is up, even if you saw a squirrel right after that 5 minutes, it doesn't matter at that time. You got to score it within that 5 minute period. So you got anything to add to section 14, timeouts?
No, I think that explained it pretty well.
Okay, so there we go, section 14, timeouts.
Alan, you've been feeding Eukanuba dog feed for a while now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have, and I've really been able to put my beagles to the test mainly running snowshoe hare up north where they run the hardest, where I put 15, 20, 25 miles on them easily in a day. And I've found that the premium performance sport has really paid dividends. Mainly, I noticed their stamina.
Yeah, same feed that I've been feeding. I think my dog looks good on it. He's really feeling good, and less kennel cleanup for me, so I highly recommend it as well.
UKC, the official performance dog nutrition partner of UKC. All right, next up we have section 15 here, and it talks all about scorecards, A, B, C, and D. Shouldn't take too long here to go through this section, but it just talks about some little scorecard rules.
Yeah, Rule 15A says scorecards must be completed in the woods, and no changes can be made later except mathematical errors that are corrected by the official or where a question arises and is noted in the woods.
Yeah, A says scorecards must be completed in the woods. We're going to, here in this section, there's one exception to that, but that should always be the rule of thumb. They complete them in the woods. We don't just go and kind of keep score in our heads and then go back to the clubhouse and fill out a scorecard. We fill out the scorecard as things happen along the way after the hunt's over with, and it doesn't really matter. You see guys doing it both ways, kind of depends on the situation a little bit, but technically maybe once the hunt time has expired, the judge should have everything there in order, and that's generally where before they even go to handle dogs, they will sign the scorecards, check your scores, make sure everything's right, and go ahead and sign it. And then, or the judge may have them go handle your dogs, and everybody meet at the trucks, and then we're going to go over the scorecard and do all this. But it needs to be done basically in the woods or out there, and not on your way back or at the clubhouse is what that means.
Yep. And I think 15B is an important part of that. It says here, handler's signature verifies hunting time and scores are correct. Any protest relative to time or scores must be noted with a question mark.
Yeah, and just because you don't agree with a situation, how it was scored or whatever, you shouldn't refuse to sign it, because we talked about not signing a scorecard is going to end up in be a scratch for you. So even though you might want to protest something or have a question, that should just be noted with a question mark. You still sign it in the woods before you take it back, or it's not a reason not to sign the scorecard because you have a question. You can sign it still with the right to protest, so to speak.
15C says any handler failing to sign the scorecard in the woods may have the opportunity to sign upon returning the scorecard to and in view of the hunt master or hunt director.
Yeah, and this is the exception I was talking about there. Maybe for whatever reason you forgot to out there, and you can do that. Now, the next question, we've talked about it here before when we were talking about rules here, and this very thing, how much time is the hunt master or the hunt director going to give you to sign it? No longer. Once the return deadline for all casts, and you still haven't came back to do it, they're not going to wait any longer after that.
And then the last one here, 15D, says all scorecards must be made available after the deadline to return scorecards or when all scorecards are in possession of the hunt master or hunt director.
Yeah, and this is a good one, really. What are we hiding? Shouldn't be nothing to hide, as far as any scorecards go for that matter. And so once the deadline is up or when all scorecards have been turned back in, anybody that was participating that day has a right to see to look at their scorecards if they want to for whatever reason. So they should always be made available by the hunt master, hunt director of the club for anybody that wants to see them after the hunt's over with. So there we have section 15 talks about some scorecard stuff there. All right, next up, we're going to cover Section 16 of the rule book, and it has everything to do with questions that happen on a cast. And this is one we always talk about. It's you don't have to be an expert on the rules or an expert handler to be able to participate. But I can tell you it helps you a whole lot, and you will eliminate a lot of surprises and things like that if the more you know the rules. Section 16, knowing how to question something and the procedures that are in place for when you don't agree with something are very, very important. And I can tell you one thing is the questions aren't always a bad thing because we do want to get it right. And then there's procedures in place to do that. In other words, and there's also good, and for good reason, why you need to question those at certain times and things like that. Because we do have a rule that says situations not questioned and notated at the time judge's decision is made will not be considered. That's a rule that binds the hunt official's hands. If he finds out later, that, hey, something happened, that I would agree with whoever is raising the question, but they never raised it when they should have raised the question. They might have waited till after the hunt or what have you. But so we're going to talk about some of these Section 16 talks all about that, and it's a very important part of the rule book for handlers to read and become familiar with.
All right, and we've alluded to this a little bit, but there's essentially two different ways to judge a cast. There's the hunting judge way, which most events assign a hunting judge. But then the first thing we're going to talk about here is the non-hunting judge cast, which may happen at major events or what have you. And it just says here under 16A, non-hunting judge cast, the decision of a non-hunting judge may only be questioned in the field at the time the decision is made. The non-hunting judge's decision may only be overturned by the hunt master or panel. It may be scored with a question mark and reviewed by the hunt master or panel. And then this last sentence here is bolded, and this we should be selling these bumper stickers. I've mentioned that a couple times. We're missing out here, but it says
I like that on a bumper sticker. I like that.
Situations not questioned and notated at the time judge's decision is made will not be considered.
Yeah, can you make that happen?
I'll try.
Yeah, I would hand those bumper stickers out by the dozens.
Every entry gets a bumper sticker.
Hey, and it's not something to use to say, hey, we can't consider it because you didn't it's not to be I don't know, picky or anything. There's good reasons for it. That's why it's there. And experience will tell you that different things that happen and different things that come up is why we have to have this rule.
Yeah.
You do your due diligence and question it when you should have, not oh boy, I wish I'd have done this, or maybe if I would have questioned it might have made a difference in the outcome or this or that. No, that's not how it should work. Shouldn't be influenced by things like that. But yeah, so the first one you mentioned, about the only time we use non-hunting judges, a judge that doesn't have a dog in the cast, is in some major events and maybe final casts of the World Championship or final casts of this or that,
Right.
So, and the club has the right to assign a non-hunting judge to any cast, but when they do, the judge makes the calls and we don't vote. Even if we don't agree with the rule that he made, we don't ask around and vote or whatever. We have the right to question it. You should bring it up as a question, and maybe the judge might consider what our debate is on it and be like, okay, yeah, you're right. I didn't read that rule correctly or whatever, But if we don't agree with it, then we're just going to ask to put a question mark on it, and we need to do it at the time the judge made the decision, or in some cases when a situation arises and we need to bring it up if he's not making a call that we think they should. That's the time when we ask for a question mark. Otherwise, that very last one, the bumper sticker bolded sentence right there, situations not questioned and notated at the time judge's decision is made will not be considered.
There you go. So the other form of cast we talked about, hunting judge cast, which is obviously way more common. A lot of folks will hunt primarily these casts. And it just starts out here by saying the following procedure must be followed when using hunting judges on a cast, regardless of the category. And there's 5 bullet points here. We'll probably take them one by one here. The first one says the hunting judge has complete authority and will be responsible for scoring all situations.
Yep. I will just add to that. We often say that it might sound good. It might seem like a friendlier approach that hey, and we hear it all the time, we're all judges. No, we're not. The club assigns one judge, even though they're a hunting judge, to a cast. They are the ones in charge and have the authority and should be. And if you are the judge, take pride in it. You make the calls, and if we don't agree, we will follow the procedures that we're going to talk about to question a call. You make those, and then because even though it might sound good to, hey, let's just poll everybody and see what you think, that often does not work as good as it sounds.
Yeah.
Because at the end, you're going to probably have two guys say this, or one guy says this, and another one says this, and two guys say this, and the one that has a different view, he talks a whole lot louder because he's the minority here. Before you know it, just make the call. If you're the judge, just make the decision, and then we'll follow the procedures. Works much better.
Absolutely.
And not just that. We also say, I'll say that here, we consider that an expert will always consider a judge that is quick to take everything to a cast vote is probably a sign of weakness.
Yep. Got to have a little confidence in that role. And you should have pride if you're selected.
And not just that. Sometimes you get into tough situations where you have tough situations, even with the experience. Still, just make a call one way or another. If somebody doesn't agree with it, we'll follow the procedures.
Exactly. Let's see. Second bullet point here under hunting judge cast says, should a situation arise where a handler questions a call that was made or a call that should have been made but wasn't, that handler shall ask to have his question voted on.
Yep.
Oh, by all cast members that remain with the cast at the time. Sorry, my eyes are failing me.
Yep. So there we go. We talked about situations that come up. You need to question them right then and there. And in this case, first step is going to be ask for a cast vote. If you don't agree with a call that's being made or a call that's not being made, ask for a cast vote, and then majority rules. But I'm probably going to. I don't know if that talks about it in this this rule. Say, okay,
yep.
There you go.
Yeah, the next bullet point here will tell you how that goes. It says each handler must vote or their dog will be scratched.
Hey, let's stop right there for a second before we go any further than that. So let's say I don't really have an opinion one way or another. Maybe somebody's asking for a situation that we vote on something that I didn't see and didn't da-da-da-da-da. So it says handler must vote, so I have to vote. It's not an option for me to say, hey, I didn't see it, I didn't hear it, whatever. I have to vote. So let's say I didn't hear it or didn't see it. To be fair, how do I vote? How should the handler vote? And I always say, because it goes on to say that my dog will be scratched if I don't vote. So I have no choice. I have to. But I always think, okay, if you have we talked about the judge making the decisions, the club puts them in place, to make these decisions. They're the judge of the cast. We should trust that for whatever reason they put him in that position. They know the rules, and why should we go again? I guess something to consider when, how to vote. If I didn't see it, didn't hear it, or whatever, have no opinion. Why am I going against the way the judge ruled on it unless I have a good reason to? Yeah. So that's something to consider. If you didn't hear something, didn't see it, why are you saying otherwise than the way the judge ruled on it?
It goes on here to say it takes a majority vote to overturn judge's decision.
Yep. So that's very simple there. We'll just stop right there. If we don't have majority so now we've asked for the vote. We've all voted on it. We know how the judge ruled on it. So that's one vote, basically, how he did. And then in a 3-dog cast, it's going to take the other two persons to say opposite of the way the judge did. And if we don't get a majority, the other two don't say opposite of the judge, then it's going to stay the way the judge ruled on it. Nothing else matters.
Yep. Then it goes on here to say any handler that is not satisfied with the outcome retains the right to place a question mark on the card and present the question to the hunt master or panel.
Yep. So here we have a situation where we may or may not agree with the outcome of the vote. Now, this is now where we just ask for a question mark to be put on the scorecard, and then it goes on to say that it's going to be taken back to the hunt master or a panel. And the only time it goes to a panel is if they use the hunt director format, where it automatically goes to a panel. One other thing that I will say is don't take the question back right then. You don't just stop your hunt and go back to the clubhouse, disrupt your hunt. These questions, any question that is noted on the scorecard, can be taken care of after your hunt is over. The only exception to that would be is if the situation involves a dog being scratched from the hunt, and even then, don't be careful how you do that and disrupt the hunt and make everybody go back on a question that you need to be sure it's very legit.
Right.
Don't be grabbing for straws and disrupting your hunt, because that may be a reason why there may be other consequences for being unsportsmanlike too.
Yep. And then the last sentence of 3 there is the bumper sticker. Situations not questioned and notated at the time judge's decision is made will not be considered.
Why do we see this multiple times in the rule book? Because it's very important.
Very important.
Very important.
The fourth bullet point here under hunting judge cast says scorecards to be carried by judge and must be scored by judge in plain view of all.
Basically, all that means is that anytime that anybody wants to see it, the judge shall allow us to see what they've got on the scorecard.
Yeah. It's not some secret. You're not going to find out at the end how everything was scored. Should be a lot of communication back and forth throughout the hunt.
Absolutely.
And then the fifth bullet point here, and this is kind of a long one, so you just let me know here if you need to stop and break anything down a little further. But it says any owner or handler disputing event placement must address the matter with the hunt master or hunt director within 30 minutes after the deadline to return scorecards.
Let's stop right there for a second, Trevor. So in rule section 15, just before this, we talked about scorecards, and 15D said this: all scorecards must be made available after the deadline to return scorecards or when all scorecards are in possession of the hunt master. So let's say I'm looking at the scorecards and I see something on there that is like a mathematical error or something like that is just absolutely wrong, or not the way, maybe it wasn't added up right, and maybe it affected the score, the placement, or something like that. So I now bring this up. Now going back to the rule that you just read, so now I see this, and now I'm disputing this event placement or whatever. Because of this, I have 30 minutes after the deadline to return scorecards to address this with the hunt officials, so they have the opportunity to maybe fix it if they can, if it's something that they can fix. But after that 30 minutes, we can't wait till the next day or next year, so that's why that may be another reason why, and this is where that 30 minutes comes in. I have 30 minutes to do it, not 31 or 35. I have to address it within 30 minutes after the posted deadline to return scorecards.
Yeah. And being an event official is a tough job. Sit around all day, and then you get 6 or 7 scorecards at once, and you got to double check those mathematical errors and tiebreakers, and you never know. It's a tough job.
Yep, and we always say, hey, if we went through all the scorecards of Feist days or whatever from 2 years ago, we could, if we really fine-combed it, we could probably find some little mistakes like that. Oh, this isn't quite right, but you got to end it at some point.
Limitation.
Yeah, yep. And so that's why it's important to know what these procedures are. And
And my whole point was just sometimes a human makes a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing against them or anything.
It's nothing malicious oftentimes. Right.
Then it goes on to say here, if the matter is not resolved, the complainant shall request an appeal form. And then it says they must clearly note their complaint on the form and return it to the event official to be mailed along with the event report to UKC for a ruling. The appeal must be accompanied by a $20 fee. Otherwise, the matter will not be considered. The fee will be refunded if ruled in favor of the complainant.
Yeah, so there you go, and it's not about the money here. It's just, let's say you see something that is wrong, and you address it with the official, and the official is not going to make any changes to it for whatever reason, and you feel that is not right, that's not correct. You can take it to UKC, and there's in every packet they have an appeal form. And you know what? If they can't find it, write it up on a plain sheet of paper. What it is, give all the information, when and where it occurred, and what the complaint is. And it'd also be good to have a copy of the scorecard, write it up along with a fee to be sent with the event report to UKC for a final ruling on it. So, and it's not about the fee, but the fee is more about make sure you have something legit too.
Get rid of the
and then if
questions.
if UKC rules in your favor, then we will absolutely return that fee to you. So there you go. Those are some very important procedures to know for questioning calls, and how much time you have to do that, when you should do it, and when you have to do it actually. And like I said, there's reasons for these time periods and all this and that, and that's something a handler and officials and everybody should be very well aware of. Section 16, a very important part of the scorecard. All right, Trevor, next up we have rules section 17 and 18. And let's kind of cover those together here. So the first, section 17, is short, and it talks about panels. And we're talking about questions, procedures, and questions that come back to the hunt master, or in the case of a hunt director, where they go to a panel. And so we're going to cover that under section 17 first. Yeah. So and it starts out by saying anytime there's a panel then there's going to be a $10 panel fee that must be paid before the question is heard by the panel.
Yeah, so basically 2 different ways for a panel to form, and you kind of even mentioned them there a little bit. The first way, 17A, when using a hunt master, a panel may be formed if a handler or owner is not satisfied with the hunt master's ruling.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's important to know is so the hunt master made a ruling on this, and when do I form this? How much time do I have? Well, you need to do it right away.
Right.
Don't go out in the parking lot and expect UKC to consider that you got influenced by somebody influencing you to go request a panel or this or that. If you don't agree with it, just tell the official right away that you want to request a panel. Pay up the $10 panel fee, and there you go. They'll set you up with a panel.
Doesn't take very long for cast members to flail away. Or
that's right, and there's a reason you want to
to.
do it right away, because everybody else is going to disperse.
Yep.
So
And so the other way, so we talked about a hunt master. A hunt director is not a licensed official. They haven't done the necessary tests and things like that. So 17B, if you're using a hunt director format, a panel must be formed to hear any and all questions. It goes straight to that.
So if you have a scorecard question, it's going to go to a panel of 3 individuals, and that same thing also is going to require a $10 panel fee. Yep. So there's A and B on panels. So Section 18, appeals. So you can even take it, and this is where UKC would become involved if you've exercised all your rights as far as getting rulings, whether it be from the hunt master or take it a step further to the panel. And you still don't agree with it, and make sure it's legitimate, but there is an appeal process, and again, it's to try to get it right, and that appeal would be to UKC. So Section 18 talks about appeals.
Yeah, and 18A says if the matter has not been satisfactorily resolved by the decision of the panel, an appeal may be filed.
And there you go. I can't make it any clearer than that.
Goes on to say in 18B, an appeal form must be requested and filed immediately following the panel's ruling while panel is still assembled.
There you go, and I think we talked about that just a little bit ago under when to ask for a panel, and this is the same thing. The reason is while your cast is still there, everybody's still there, and so you can. And one of the reasons for that is this is where paperwork becomes a part of it. There's paperwork for you to fill out, to get all the information, so UKC can make a decision. We need your name. We need the names of the handlers. We need to know what the situation was on that panel fee form, or on that panel form. It's also, or appeal form. It's also going to ask, how the panel ruled on it and why and this and that, what rule they're using, and gets their information as well, so we can contact everybody.
That's right.
And that's why you need to do it while the panel is still assembled, so we can get everybody's information. Again, can't go out. It's not going to work to go outside and somebody else, talk to somebody and then come back. Hey, I want to file an appeal. No. And honestly, if you did that, and even though they might have given you an appeal form, we're going to find out one of the situations that UKC's, when we review it, we're going to review it from when it started in the field. Yeah. So it's going to also be important that we find that you followed all the procedures that we've talked about from Section 16 on, questioning a call. Make sure you did that appropriately. And as outlined in the rule book, that you went through, you took your question back to the hunt master, or if there was a hunt director, it went to the panel, you filed all the right fees and all this and that. All those procedures were followed. We're going to make sure you did that, because if you didn't, it's not going to matter how legit or illegit your question is. And we may even agree with you. So that's why it's important that you follow those procedures, so we can help you. You do your part, and UKC will do their part as well.
Next to here, it says 18C says appeals must be submitted to the hunt master or hunt director with a fee of $20.
Yep, and same with the panel fee. That's $10. In this case, it's $20, and it's not about the fee. It's just to discourage somebody from just filling out paperwork with just as a reaching, make sure it's legit. And then, of course, obviously, if we agree with you, then we're going to return that fee to you.
And then 18D just says all appeals will be investigated and ruled on by UKC.
Yep, and those appeal forms are sent in with the event reports at the same time. So, and then it'll take probably, this case we usually do those as soon as we possibly can when we get them within the next couple of days. And anybody involved will be reaching out to them and make those decisions. And I think we're pretty good at it. We're obviously pretty versed on the rules and procedures and all this and that. So, and that's what it's all about, trying to get it right.
Yeah. And I guess if I could just put a bow on it before you do, 16, 17, 18 questions, panels, appeals, may seem, it may seem pretty strict here or something to somebody looking, but it applies to all hunts, and some of them have a lot more on the line than others, and we're bound by these rules. And if something were to happen where we have to defend ourselves, or something pops up, we wouldn't have a leg to stand on if we just did it however we wanted to. There has to be written rules in place, and we have to follow those written rules.
Yep, you're right. The event officials are bound by these rules, and as are we. And like I said, it doesn't matter whether we may agree with you, but there's also reasons for it, and there are none more important. It doesn't matter if they're at a regular event, just a regular event, or it's the World Championship. Just because it's the World Championship doesn't make it any different, or there's no exceptions because of that, or vice versa. So you nailed it right there. All right, so that kind of wraps up the questioning procedure, the panel procedure, and the appeals procedures there in 16, 17, and 18.
Alan, I know we both have new Dogtra Pathfinder 2s. How are you liking yours so far?
I'm liking it. I've even had the opportunity now to use mine where I didn't have service, where I download the map of that area, and it works flawlessly. Love it.
I agree. I really like my Dogtra Pathfinder 2 as well. I've used it quite a bit the past few months. I really like the crystal clear maps. I like that it doesn't lose service very much, and I don't have many bad things to say about it at all. Dogtra Pathfinder 2, the official GPS collar partner of UKC.
All right, we have two more sections left to cover here on the rule book, and that's section 19 and 20, and let's just put those together, Trevor. 19 has one little thing, and it's pretty simple, and it talks about cast winners and what it takes to be eligible for a cast winner.
Yep, just says here, 19A, a dog must have a total score of plus points to receive a championship win.
Yep. Got to be a plus point cast winner. Dog that has 0 or less than that, even though it had the best score in the cast, is not going to be eligible for any championship cast wins. So that's 19. That's as quick as we can cover a rule section, or a section of the rule right there.
You guys kept that one pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Section 20 talks about tiebreakers, and sometimes you have ties in a cast. Or maybe it might even be ties for placement within the event. This is section 20. The last one on your scorecard is where you're going to go to figure out how to break those ties.
Yeah, so the first step will be the dog with the most circle points.
Yep. Dog had the most circled points before. Now, sometimes I think and it's because of some registries do them differently, do their tiebreakers differently. So sometimes they'll say, has this score, but with this amount of circle points and all this. Just make sure you look at the tiebreakers and what those first ones are. And actually in UKC too, you have a dog with the exact same score. The tie will be broken using the dog that has the most circled points, and that can be from total circled points.
Yeah, say they have the same amount of circle points, you'll move on to the next step. And it says, if still a tie, the dog that has the most plussed first trees.
Yeah, the most 100 plus on the scorecard for trees, yep.
If it's still a tie, the dog with the least minus points.
Yep. So there you go. One dog has some minus or a minus, another dog doesn't. Why, that's the easy one. Dog didn't have any minus going to win.
If still a tie after the minus points, it would go to number 4 here, and it says dogs involved to hunt in sudden death. And I guess it talks about or defines sudden death right here. It says the first dog to receive plus, minus, or circle points shall end the hunt and determine the winner.
Yeah, now this only pertains to with dogs within the same cast. Obviously, we don't have a sudden death for dogs that in separate casts for like placements. This rule section or 4 is not going to going to apply to that. This is only 2 dogs on the same cast. So let's say you have 2 dogs tied on the same cast, and we're just 2 out of the 3. We're going to pull the one out that is not involved. He's not going to be a part of this. But the first dog to receive any scoring, whether it's plus, minus, or circle, and that's the first dog, that will end the hunt and determine your winner at that point.
Yep.
There's nothing, with no need for us to score a second dog. Let's say the first one's treed first and it has a circle tree. And while we're doing that, maybe after the first one treed, the second dog gets treed as well, and it has a squirrel. We've already broke the tie before we get to the second one. It's the first one to make something happen, either whether it's plus, minus, or circle, whatever, now we can break the tie, obviously, based on that first dog's, whatever that first dog did.
Yeah, that's the sudden death part of it. It's not an extra time period. It's
exactly.
Sudden death.
Yep.
And then it goes on to say here, points awarded shall not be reflected on original score.
Yep. So let's say you had 100 points on the original score, and the dog went and treated another squirrel or whatever, and that broke the tie. Dog doesn't now have 200. It just, that sudden death just broke that score between that original score, and that's how you leave it. You don't add any more points to it.
Yep. And then it just finished here saying no more than 15 minutes shall be used. Return deadline shall be extended 15 minutes for this cast only.
Yep, and that's the only exception to a deadline would be for that if they had a sudden death situation. And in that case, just that cast involved would get a 15-minute extension if need be.
And then the last way, if it's still a tie, you got to flip a coin.
Yep. And that's, and if that's the case with, for placement or something like that, 4 is not going to apply to there. You can't, so, flip a coin is the very last thing to break a tie. So there you go, Section 20, tiebreakers. So that concludes our coverage of the running rules for the Feist Squirrel hunt. So hopefully it's been educational for folks, and Trevor, I appreciate you being a part of this and helping me out with this. So
yeah, fun stuff.
So all right, there we go, Section 20 tiebreakers, and that concludes our coverage of the running rules.
Thank you for listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. Be sure to give us a follow so you don't miss any of our new episodes or content.